从你后院儿，不是从后面，从那后车你那儿有一个
All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's open class, Consulting June time. So every Friday, 5:30 to 6, we're here to share with you the experiences from different major and different experts. Today we invite Cecilia, my best friend, and also she's currently working as a nurse. So actually, we have a lot of questions to ask you. So majorly, we want the student to understand is nursing a good major, or what kind of personality can fit for being a nurse, and how challenging you are. And look at you, you dress up like you put your uniform today. Okay, all right. So do you mind if you introduce yourself a little bit to our students?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Cecilia. I'm a cardiac nurse at Stanford Hospital, where I've worked from the beginning of my nursing career for the past 12 years. It wasn't quite the career that I had selected for myself in high school. In fact, I really didn't know what I want to do. I think most of my friends didn't know what they want to do, but we knew we were either taking the liberal arts track or the science. I knew I was always interested in science. So I attended one of the UCs for 4 years. Majoring in biological sciences. But very quickly, I actually switched to engineering because my parents asked me to consider engineering, because at that time, high tech was was sort of at this peak.
Oh, you switched to the engineering?
Yeah, For actually, as soon as I got into college, at that time, it was much easier to switch track. I know that it's not the case now. So I went to the UC Davis. I did my first 3 years in engineering. I can't say I loved it. I liked it enough, but I didn't love it. Fortunately, in the third year, every year, if anybody has older sibling at UC Davis, we have annual picnic day. It's a family fun event where kids and family come, and every department have their showcase. Like the chemistry department would have magic show for the kids. You can go to the animal science department. They have holy cow. If anybody know what holy cow is, a cow basically, it's alive. It's standing there, and you wait in line, and the stomach is cut open. So you have the head, you have the tail, you got the big hole, and you could put on gloves and reach in and feel the stomach wall, take out the digestive hay, put it back. It was very amusing. Fortunately, they took it away due to animal rights.
Okay, that's the time you find out that's interesting?
Well, I've always thought, no. Then I walk into the Department of Physiology, and I met this guy. And this is a guy that actually turned my career around, my interest around. He was Mr. Cadaver. He was the guy that was dead. He was on display showing all his muscles, the skeleton. And I said, this is just really fascinating. It was right then at that point, I wanted to learn everything about the human body, not just what it does, but what does all this muscle mean? So yeah, I know my grandpa complains of a joint pain. It's not just that, but I want to know more. I want to know how the heart and the lung and all that function. How do you put that together? So at that time, I decided I wasn't going to spend my last year finishing up engineering, because it didn't mean a whole lot to me. I did finish up in physiology, minors in communication, because I wanted something to I realized I felt like I wasted 3 years of my career. I mean, my time in college. I said, what am I going to take? And my last year, that's focus on what I want. Because I think if I focus on what I'm interested in, it's going to take me somewhere where it's going to land me in a career.
And why not the doctor? Why nurse? So what's the difference at that time you figure out?
At that time, I knew it was many years ahead to be a doctor, but I wanted to, I actually did volunteer in my second year while I was engineering major. I did volunteer in the clinic. UC Davis had 3 free clinics affiliated with the college. There was one clinic that served the Chinese community, one that served the Hispanic, and one served the Black communities. I did the one that serviced the Chinese community. We would open 3 hours every Saturday, and we'll pass out free medications. We would check their blood pressure. That really sparked my interest working with people. But yet, I have to say, this is in the 90s now. Even back in high school, when I think back, the Career Center, they didn't really promote, nurses. There was a lot about going to the physician's route, business, law. None of that really interests me at that time. So
I think it's just because a lot of things that, like, people feel like the nurse or the nursing major or the nurse as a career is like very tired and exhausted. And what is the typical day usually as a nurse? Maybe you can just tell more specifically, so the students or parents, they understand like what they can expect.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. My 12 hours day, and there's some nurses work in 12 hours, some work in 8 hours. Now I am a hospital nurse. So there are nurses that deal with law, nurse informatics. I can go more into that. But my typical day, it's a 12-hour days. I start and I get a report from the night nurse. Remember, this is that hospitals are open 24/7. So we are always taking care of patient, 24/7, including weekdays and weekends. So night shift nurse will give me a report on my patients. In the state of California, depending on what your level of acuity is, mine is 3-to-1 ratio, so 3 patients to 1 nurse. I get the report, and then I go and start my day. I go into each room, I see my patients, I check their vital signs, I look at them on the monitor. All these patients are very sick, very ill. Some of them are pre-transplant, post-transplant dialysis, so they are constantly being monitored on their heart monitor. So my first priority is to see that they're stable. And then there was a lot of medication passing in the morning.
And how many hours usually? 12 hours, right?
I work 12 hours.
And after that, you have how many days off? Because I know you are not like working every day, right?
I don't work every day. This is one of my favorite part of nursing is that I work 36 hours a week. That's 12 hours times 3. And the rest of the week, I'm off. And so I work 3 days a week and I get 4 days off. So for me, it's a pretty sweet deal. I get more days off than I work. So,
yeah.
And I love it. I have children and I get to spend time with my kids and me time. I mean,
do you
balance.
think the nurse is good for girls as a career pursue, or you think it's also
it is
good
not
for
gender? No, definitely not. I mean, there's more and more male in the nursing. I think right now there tend to be more nurses because they tend to be more of a nurturing character to go into nursing as far as personality goes.
What kind of personality? Like what I mentioned at the beginning, yeah?
Yeah.
You have to be a caring person.
You have to, I mean, caring, it's not something you can learn from a book, right? It really comes from within.
But sometimes don't you feel like if someone is like too caring and working with people who are suffering all the time, they might feel like, too much stress. They feel like, because they're feeling sympathetic all the time, right? So do you have the same feeling?
There are times where I really get pulled into the story and, especially a young woman who passed away from cancer. It is tragic. It's not their time yet. But it is a reality of life, but that's not the focus. I focus on what can I do to make the best out of their stay in the hospital? What can I do to make the best for them before the end of life? And and that doesn't happen very often, as far as patients who pass away. And what can I do for the family? What can I do to empower this family, to educate them, to take better care of their loved one who has diabetes, who aren't complying with their condition? And sometimes it's just spending, on a typical day, a doctor come in and they do rounds, maybe 5 minutes, and I get the rest of the day. And that means I have that much of an opportunity to educate my patients and the family. And so I feel that I have a very crucial role in what I do because the doctor might use a lot of jargon, but I'm there to explain, well, this is why the doctor said don't eat too much salt. And they're, well, why? I'm so sick and tired of hearing it. But tell me, but I get the privilege to sit down and talk to them. And they so appreciate it. And when they understand and that clicks, that's a really great moment for me. That's what I say a great day, when I have helped someone to make a difference and hope that when I discharge them and they go home, they know how to take better care of themselves. And so that's a huge part of being a nurse.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So come back to the major part. So what usually, you have to learn, if you want to become a nurse, and what is the path look like? I know you switch back from the, engineering major, but for now it's not really easy for students to switch back to majors. As we better suggest them to figure out what they like at the beginning. I mean, the earlier you figure out what you want, the better you can pursue, right? So usually if you want, if a students want, say hey, I'm going to towards the medicine or medical side or doctor or nurse in the future, what is the path you suggest them to prepare or get ready?
Well, if there's opportunity, I definitely recommend getting some volunteer. It can be a canine striper, just to see.
What kind of volunteer?
You can volunteer in ER. You can volunteer in clinics. Yes, it may. Some people say, well, that's just boring. Well, what is boring? Because once you step into the hospital setting, everything is totally different. You're seeing things you've never seen. I don't mean, if you walk into trauma hospital, you're gonna see some pretty, gruesome, gunshot wound things. But
what high school usually can do in the hospital? High school students can do.
Volunteer will come to our hospital and they'll bring blankets. They will talk to our patients, keep them company, or just whatever they need. They can't touch a patient because that's a liability thing. But
they have a lot of things to do.
They have a lot of things to do. They might do some paper filing, but they get to see the nurse's role, they get to see the nurse's assistants, they get to see the doctor, they get to be the bedside and talk to patient and seeing, I mean, it's a great opportunity. So
and also they can learn if they really like it or if they, really can see themselves in that environment in the future.
Absolutely. So
and what is the challenging part for you? What is the biggest challenge for you being a nurse?
To be a nurse, you
can say no challenge. That's fine.
Now that I've been there for 12 years, the challenge I present to myself is that to not stop learning, because you have to know nursing. One of the great things I like to take a moment to share is that nursing is not just about working at the bedside. There's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of venues. So what I didn't mention is that after I graduated from UC Davis, I actually, my first company was actually at Apple's computer. I did engineering for 3 years, Apple, IBM, and a software company.
Oh my God, so, this is an engineer nurse. Okay.
And I liked it, but again, I didn't love it.
Cool.
And that's what I was missing. There was such a huge void because I knew there was something missing. When I got laid off, that was probably the best thing that ever happened, believe it or not, ironically, is that it forced me to think, what do I want to do when I grow up? What do I really want to do? That's my passion, right? And so I talked to someone about nursing, so I did explore it. To go back to your questions, I could have done nursing informatics combined. Now, back then, many years ago, right, doctors didn't dictate their notes on computer. Everything's on paper, charting, right? So I could have gone to nursing informatics. I could go into nursing law because the doctor a hospital filed a lawsuit against a physician, nurses will have to testify. So you can combine that. I could be a flight nurse. I could be a trauma nurse. So Stanford has a flight program. UCS has a flight program. If there is trauma out in the field, in the mountain, you are by yourself with a pilot who, not medical trained, but they can fly the plane. But you go out there, you're on your own. You're intubating the patient. You're rescuing these patients.
Wow.
So this is more the higher acuity.
Wow.
In the hospital setting, you could be a dialysis nurse. You can work with patients with cancer. You can work with patients who have trauma, orthopedic, like joint issues.
But they really have to be have prudence, right? Have to be careful enough, right? For example, what usually happens is I told my students, okay, so they say, oh, I circled the wrong bubble. I chose A, but for some reason I circled a C. And then was like, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor in the future. I was like, okay, you probably gonna forgot to pull out the needles from their vessel, right? So the things like that. So have you ever get any situation like making some careless mistake? Are they allowed? I think it's not allowed for the career, right?
Making mistakes depends. So, making a mistake is on a human. It's not always very forgiving, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I was supposed to cut a pill in half and I wasn't paying attention and give a full pill, that could mean dropping someone's blood pressure and falling out and then have to give them fluid to resuscitate them. And then they can't breathe because I gave them too much fluid. So being a nurse, you, characteristic-wise, details.
Yes.
Detail.
That's what we always talk about. You need to train yourself to pay attention to detail, to be responsible for whatever you do, right? So be responsible for your action. I think that's something is really good, no matter you want to be a nurse or be whatever in the future, because the small mistakes sometimes cause big consequences, right?
Yes. In math, you guys know your zeros, and I had one situation, a coworker have accidentally programmed a pump. It was a very important cardiac drip, and it added 1 0, and that's 10-fold.
Oh my God.
And this is a patient who waited 3 months for a heart transplant. It was our baby. We want to make sure everything was done well. Luckily, nothing bad happened, and he did receive his heart. So, these are things that are very important.
I see. All right. You should listen, okay? This is something, a careless mistake can cause serious consequences. I'm not trying to scare you guys, but we really wanted to make sure those kind of the small mistake or silly mistake, you call it silly mistake or careless mistake, it doesn't exist. It shouldn't exist, okay? That's usually what we train the students to do. All right, okay, so one more question. So when you are doing the nurse part, so what things you don't like? What the part you don't like? We talk about a challenge, what about things you're passionate about? What part you don't like? Is there anything you don't like? You dislike?
Patients who don't care about their health. It's very frustrating to work with. It's frustrating for physicians, it's frustrating for the healthcare system, because there are patients that are, and for instance, the homeless, right? They come in because they fell, or maybe they had a stroke, but at the end of the day, we might do everything to save them, to be better, healthier. but they might go out and not take their medication. So we see it's a
Or they
revolving
take
door
their
to come
pill
back.
with
Yeah,
Coca-Cola,
so that,
right?
and they, drug users, it's
Mhm.
frustrating, especially those who have addictive behavior with
Mhm.
drugs, with pain medication. It's a hard thing to deal with. I mean, we still treat them all the same. It doesn't matter what the background, the financial background, where they came from, But when we see this behavior coming back, revolving door, or those who come to hospital for a drug-seeking behavior, it is hard. It is challenging not to make judgment, but we do. Nurses are there. We do what we do to always give them that chance, benefit of the doubt, that they can be better when they leave the hospital.
I see. And will you want your daughter to do the same job in the future if she likes to be a nurse? You recommend her to do the same thing?
Well,
because we have the routine, because Silicon Valley, a lot of engineer parents, they want their
Absolutely.
kids to be engineer. Doctor family, they want the kids to go on a doctor. Dental family, they want to go to dental. The dentistry part, okay, so there's so many, parents, they want their kids to carry on, whatever they do. Yeah, that's part of the routine. I mean, that's not only for Silicon Valley. I think it's for a lot of families, right? That's part of things, like, you understand, so you see the benefit and, good part and bad part. So do you also suggest your daughter to do it?
So
you have, by the way, Cecilia has beautiful twins, right?
That's a great question. So, my parents were immigrants. I immigrated here in elementary school, and my parents never really forced me into one way or another. But it was the time engineering was hot. As everyone went into it, it's like, why is your daughter not in it, right? But in the end, I did nothing to do with engineering, and I'm so glad I did. Doesn't mean that's not a great field. It's still a fantastic field, but it wasn't the right fit for me. What I recommend is, and I wouldn't steer my kids one way or another to become a physician or lawyer, because all these are great prestigious fields. I really think that as parents, you really have to just present them the opportunity. My kids are now, my twins are 9, and they are, old enough that they could travel with me, and I plan to do some missionary work and bring them to other countries where they could see, and just it will be a great eye-opening experience for myself and for my kids. I'm really just exposing different types of opportunity, volunteer. I think for me, what I'm going to say is you must follow your heart. You got to do what you really like, because when you do, you will land in a career that's just going to take you further and further.
So that's what you're going to tell your daughter. So you're not going to recommend her to do whatever the job or career. You just recommend her to just follow her heart, right? That's exactly usually what we do. All right. Okay. So don't forget, we also have Q&A section. So if you have any question related to nursing major or working in the hospital experience or volunteer in the hospital or anything related, you are welcome to ask question. You can use the chat box, or you can just raise your hand, and we can just unmute you, let you talk with us. Okay. All right. So we appreciate a lot of your sharing. So one more question. So usually, when I expect communication with my students, with parents, with a lot of things. I believe teacher is part of the communications skill, right? So we feel like we need to, talk with them, educate, a lot of the situations, educate them, right? So have you ever experienced some situation some rude patient, some patient not respect or hard to communicate with, have you ever experienced things like that?
All the time.
All the time?
All the time.
Okay, so how you handle it? So now that requires another criteria. So the students who want to be a nurse, you have to be what? You have to be patient. You have to be tough, right? At the same time, and also you need to have high energy level, because you have to work 12 hours a day or 8 hours a day, and that's kind of handling all the emergency situation. And plus you have to be very careful, and everything goes to detail, pay attention to detail, right? So tell me something about the experience. Share a little bit about all the time, how you handle it.
Well, that's
what's worst case.
Well, that's one of the things that I love about nursing, is that I never.
Oh, you love it?
I absolutely love nursing.
Oh,
I would never. I'm so glad I went and took this path. One of the things I love about nursing is that every day is different. I never know. It's like that box of chocolate, right? In Forrest Gump, I never know what I'm going to get.
Oh, but that's not chocolate. That's
not chocolate, but it's
that's
patient.
something
Is that patient human being comes in different, size, color, personality, and they're just also different. You never know what you're going to deal with. And with experience, you become more and more equipped in handling the different personality. For the most part, I work at Stanford, so I'm very blessed to have a population that are mostly educated. The demographic in Palo Alto, as relatively affluent area. But there are patients that are, It's psychological patient, right? You have psych patients. You have patients that are developmentally delayed. I mean, how do you teach someone to be compliant when they don't understand, right? There are patients that fortunately have not been kicked, but if you guys read these articles in other parts of the hospital, there are patients that are violent. They might be put on restraint.
I mean, the people just behave like so differently when they
different.
are in unhealthy condition. I think that's
they
part
could
of
be
the
withdrawing from drugs. They could be just got crashed after a car accident from DUI. I mean, you don't know what you're dealing with. But I mean, for the most part, I work in a cardiac population, so most of the patients come in because they have heart condition. But that doesn't mean heart patients do not have comorbidity. It doesn't mean they don't have diabetes. I've got patients who are so ill, and their heart, they cannot walk from one room to the other end of the room. They cannot breathe. Some of the patients are wearing LVAD. LVAD is a left ventricular assisted device. Their heart cannot work. They have an external machine that pumps the heart. So this is very overwhelming for them. So I got to find a way. I got to read, reading people is important. You got to know what are you dealing with, what is their capability to learn, what is their readiness to learn. So yes, as a nurse, you have to be very compassionate, but you also have this intuition. You also have to set boundaries with patients who have behavioral issues. Did I learn this from the book in high school and college? Absolutely not. But this all comes with skills.
Okay,
so
that's something
I really
love
encourage. I absolutely love it, and I
that is something like I really feel like amazing. When I heard you talk about this, because I never heard you complain anything about related to your job, your patients. Is always you even compared to a box of chocolate, but that's something sweet, right? It's not like something tough or something hard. Well, that's really amazing. That's really amazing. Okay, so let's see if we have any question regarding to this. Okay, so anyone has question regarding the major? All right, because this is like we just finished one application season, and now the next year, the new application season just started. So right now we're working with students, and I'm working with students to choose major, decide their major and choose a school based on the major. It's not only about a Harvard, Stanford, Yale. Yeah, it's all about like which school fit you most. Yeah, that's whatever we always tell the students and also parents. So it's not like you push your kids to the top school and then your job is down. How are they going to survive there? How are they going to feel there, right? That's something very important. So we always want to make sure the kids get something, make them feel happy, make them feel like passionate about, like you went into the engineer and then you go back to your own way, right? So this is something we want to help them to figure out at the early stage. Yeah. And have you ever tried the MBTI test? The 60 personalities. I really wanted to try to see what is the result. Yeah. So I feel like those kind of, like a test can help the students. I mean, we do that to the students, and some of them, they have like ENTJ, that's like more, detail oriented. And some of them like ENS, FP, that's more about like a feeling, those kind of different personality, or some like ISTJ. So those different personality can show a little bit like if they are, fit for a different major, different career. So I think that helps a little bit, but still, most of the students in high school, they still trying to figure out what they want, and either they want everything or they don't want anything. Yeah, it's hard for a lot of people.
And I know there's a lot of tools, personality tests, but just know that it's a tool to help you out if you feel a little lost, but it's not an end all be all. I mean, definitely it may not be accurate, it may not be. So I really encourage students to really just talk to people. Please do, because this is your time, to just, you can freely ask any questions to anybody, what they do, what is a day like. Maybe you can shadow them. Volunteer is a great way.
And also, I feel like even the student, they don't want to go for the nursing major, they still can try to volunteer in the hospital, because dealing with people, making communication and seeing like so many different lives, and make them can cherish their life more. I don't know if you have the feeling or not, just watching different people has cancer or something, you may cherish life or pay more attention to your health, your family's health, right? More.
It's a huge eye-opening experience, and
also this working experience can make you like stronger in taking care of the family's health and also dealing with like emergency situation, right?
Yeah. Okay. And actually in the 12 years of nursing, I mean, I've kind of went from being an introvert to an extrovert, and you'll be surprised, you know.
Yeah. We got one question here.
Oh,
They
sure.
say, you can apply medical school after finishing any major. Can you do this after finishing nursing major?
You can apply medical school after finishing, yes, after nursing major. So yeah, in fact, I mean, there are English major who end up going to medical school. So in nursing, you do need, ultimately, you do need your anatomy, physiology, your microbiology. There's definitely a requirement to get into nursing school. So maybe this might help you. So I attended 4-year college at UC Davis, and I ended up going back to nursing school. I went to San Francisco State University, and they basically just asked for a set of requirement classes. At that time, I've left university. I wanted my grades to be better. I wanted my grades to be recent, so I went to a local junior college and retake some of the classes. Those are required, but there's also the GE, right? So if you guys are going to a 4-year nursing program, you still have to do all your GEs. You could do this at a local junior college. You can do it at your 4-year college. By that time, because I already have a bachelor's degree, all I needed was the core nursing classes.
But it's still amazing, you know, an engineer become a nurse, you know. You can always have a lot of things to share with your patient, especially in Silicon Valley, right? I think a lot of the patient maybe they are engineers.
Yes,
you can talk about
yes.
that. All right, I think what the question tried to ask is like, can you change your major after finishing the nursing major? For example, you study nursing major as your major in college, and after you graduate, can you still apply different majors? For example, go for doctor direction, go for PhD. Yeah, I think this question.
You can. I mean, just like any other major. Yeah, it's just like any major. Yeah, absolutely, you can. But you know, I really encourage you to just try your best to choose your path. There are nurses who received their nursing education, worked as a nurse, and end up being a nurse practitioner. So they go back for, I believe, another 2 years. You can get a doctorate in nursing, and they can become a teacher or can do research. Some of the nurses would, after so many years and working in an acute care setting, which means in a hospital setting, they move on to do research. They work at Genentech. They work at all these biotech companies that you guys see in the Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I also see like a lot of students, they chose their major at the beginning, and then after the 2nd year or 3rd year, they decide to switch their major, and then they go for the master degree in a different major. So we have like different to switch. Yeah, it's pretty common. Yeah, it's pretty common.
If you're switching within the science track, there's always going to be overlap, right? The calculus, the physics, the chemistry.
Yes.
You know, so when you switch from science to liberal arts, then you're taking more and more political science and economic classes. So I would say at least try your best to choose one of the two paths.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's it for today, and the time is really limited. But I really enjoy what you share with us. I think a lot of parents and students, they also appreciate like your sharing. Thank you so much, and probably you can monitor my heart later on, like listen a little bit, because this is so cool. You know, we're like this. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us for today's seminar, and we're gonna see you next Friday. Every Friday, 5:30 to 6. Every Friday, 5 to 6. Thank you. Say bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.